College Football 26 is finally here. EA implemented some amazing new mechanics that will revolutionize how we play defense for years to come. So in this video, I'm breaking down the 5 things that completely change defense in College Football 26. And real quick guys, if you're looking for schemes to help you win more games, both our Alabama offense and dime normal defense game plans are available right now on playbookprofessor.gg and are already helping our members win way more games. So starting us off at number 1, the new custom zone stems feature gives you total control over where your defenders play in College Football 26. This is maybe my favorite new feature added to the game this year, and so I want to show you guys what the new custom zone stem feature is and how we can use it in our online games. And so starting off, what is a custom zone stem? So for a custom zone stem, let's click over to this right side outside cornerback, and I'm going to press A on Xbox or X on PlayStation to pull up my individual adjustments menu. Now at the bottom of the menu, you can see that there's an option for custom zone. So if I press and hold LB or L1, it's going to pull up my on-field play art. And if I press up or down on the left stick, it's going to allow me to drag this zone into any spot that I want. Now you can also press up or down on the D-pad and it'll move the zone in 5-yard increments. I like using the left stick because it's a smooth, continuous thing where you can put the zone exactly where you want. And by the way, when you go all the way down, this is actually 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, which is perfect if you're trying to have your guy jump in front of an RPO bubble screen or something. Now, the most important thing to understand is that when you use a custom zone stem, where you visually see the zone on the field is where it's going to play. The name of the zone no longer matters. And so even though this is called a cloud flat, if I drag it down to 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, he's going to play 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage like a hard flat more so than a cloud flat. If I was to shade my coverage down so that the names of these zones are now hard flat, but then I custom zone stem him up to 30 plus yards deep, he's going to play 30 yards deep. It doesn't matter anymore that he's called a hard flat. The custom zone stem is going to override whatever name the zone has on the field. Now, if you're doing this in an actual game, you probably aren't going to want to be clicking onto your individual players. And the good news is that we can use quick adjustments for these custom zones. So if I'm using with my middle linebacker and I want to back off one of my outside cornerbacks in one of their flat zones, I can just double tap wire triangle for my defensive back icons. In this case, I can press B for my right side outside cornerback, and then I get the exact same menu. I can hold LB or L1, and I can move him all the way back. And so it's really nice that you can do this using quick adjustments. Now, the next thing is it's not just defensive backs. You can do this with linebackers as well. If I double tap right on the D-pad, I can press A to select my right side linebacker. Same exact thing. I can move his hook zone wherever I want on the field. Now, you can even do this with your deep blue zones. You can even, if you wanted to, take your safeties and scoot these deep blue zones further back or, God forbid, further down. Now, I will say that when you move these things further down, if you guys want to see just for the sake of experiment, they will come down initially. They won't run all the way behind the line of scrimmage. Eventually they'll stop and they'll turn around and try and get back. But you can play around with that and do different things. Like they run down initially and then they turn around and run back. I don't really know a good situation where you would want to do that to your deep blue zones, but you have that possibility. You have that option if you wanted to. And so custom zone stems give us a lot of freedom and a lot of creativity in where we want our zones to play. Now, the next thing you might be asking is how do our zone drops and our coaching adjustments interact with these custom zone stems? That's a great question, and let's go take a look right now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my blue flats in a 20-yard zone drop. And so blue flats is our hard flats, our cloud flats, and our soft squats. So we go zone drop flats, we put these on 20, and we go ahead and call Tampa 2 once again, and just call any random pass play. Now, before I show you the play art, I want to say this is one of, I think, the most underrated cool changes that EA added to the game this year. And what that is if you have a custom zone stem or zone drops on the field, it's going to visually show you exactly where those zones will play. And so this is what the play art looks like. Because I set my zone drops to 20, it's automatically showing both of those cloud flats playing at 20 yards deep. This is an awesome change compared to last year. Because last year, let's say you had hard flats on the field, but they were zone dropped to like 30 yards deep. they would still show visually on the on-field play art as being a hard flat playing in the flat, but then they would drop 30 yards deep. That's no longer the case. Now, whatever you set your zone drops to, that is what they will actually show on the on-field play art. But now we have to answer the question of how do those zone drop values interact with our custom zone stems? And it's a very simple answer, actually. The answer is that wherever you see the zone playing on the field is where it's going to play. And so we started this play off with 20-yard zone drops, but if I take my right side outside cornerback and move him back down to -5, that's where he's going to play now. It no longer matters that the zone drop values were set to 20. That was basically just giving the initial depth of where you'll see the cloud flats playing when you break the huddle. But once you custom zone stem them, wherever you visually see those zones playing is where they're going to play when the ball is snapped. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So you no longer have to think of these as 20-yard zone dropped cloud flats. It's simply, you can look at the cloud flat and see, oh, it's just going to play 20 yards deep. Oh, actually, I want to change it to 30. Let me just back him up to 30. Now he's a 30-yard cloud flat. And so hopefully that makes sense to everyone. I know that if you're used to how zone drops used to work, where it's like, okay, once you set that zone drop, that's going to overrule everything else. It's no longer the case. Now it's just going to be where you visually see the zone playing on the field. But now, an important caveat to that, and I'm gonna sound like I'm contradicting myself. That rule where the zones will play where you visually see them on the field only applies if you've used zone drops or a custom zone stem. If the zone is on default zone drops and you did not custom zone stem it, it will have a lot more like built-in logic under the hood, and that zone will move around a lot more and maybe go in places that you potentially don't want it to go. And so, for example, let's look at this linebacker on the left side in this hook curl. We would think that he's just going to play exactly where his zone visually shows, but that's not quite the case because he's still on default zone drops and we have not custom zone stemmed him. And so if we were to do something like this, where we just send a streak out from our slot receiver, we can get that hook to play much deeper than where we maybe thought he was going to play. And so if you want him to play exactly where he's showing, what you have to do, custom zone stem him. And I mean, heck, this is essentially the exact same spot as before, but now he's on a custom zone stem right here. Now he will actually play where you can visually see him playing. And look at the difference. Now he's going to be all over this in route and it's just a couple yard gain. And so it's a very small, subtle difference, but it is a difference to where if you don't custom zone stem them or zone drop them, they will be at the mercy of the built-in logic. And especially if you do shading, you can shade hook curls up, down, left, right, and get all kinds of different behavior out of them. But if you want them to play in a specific spot, just go ahead and custom zone stem them. And unfortunately, it's just glitching out, and so I'm not able to show you guys this time. But once again, that is now a custom zone stemmed hook curl, and he's gonna sit exactly in that spot rather than dropping deep to where he dropped before. And so I know this is kind of a lot to process. Things are a lot different than last year, but overall, I think this is a really amazing change for the game. Being able to take a defender and put them on a zone wherever you want, and being able to trust that they're going to play exactly that spot is something that we've all been asking for a very long time. Zone drops were an okay solution, but they weren't a perfect solution, because let's say you have your zone drops on 30 and then your opponent gets into like a 4th and 2 situation and then they no huddle. Are you going to call timeout? Are you going to have to just like switch to man coverage or something? Well, no. In this case with custom zone stems, we literally just take our 30-yard zone drops and just bring them down to whatever depth we want. And so I definitely think that's where custom zone stems might come in handy the most, is when your opponent no huddles. The flip side, have you ever gotten a sack on someone on 3rd down and now it's 4th and 20 and they just no huddle? And it's like, oh crap, like my defense isn't really prepared to stop something 20 yards deep. Well, now guess what? You can just back these cloud flats up to whatever depth you want. Oh, hook curls, back them up too. Back everybody up. And it's just so incredibly powerful to just on the fly be able to put anyone at any depth that you want. And so that is custom zone stems. I think it is the best new feature added to the game this year, and it gives you so much creativity and freedom. over exactly where you want your defenders to play on any given snap. Now, moving on to number 2, the new route commit feature lets you play high risk, high reward man coverage in college football 26. This new feature has a ton of potential for making man coverage way more effective. So I want to show you guys how we can use it and also talk about some of its drawbacks and limitations. So starting off, you have to be in man coverage in order to use route commit. And by that, I mean, it's only going to do anything if you're in man coverage. You can still route commit if you're in zone coverage, but it's not going to affect how your hook zones or your flat zones or your deep blues play. So if you're going to use route commit, make sure you're in man coverage. But now let's talk about how we can actually use it. Once we are out on the field in a man coverage play, if we press RB or R1, the menu will have a left panel which says route commit. And we can press left on the left stick to route commit inside, right on the right stick to route commit outside, or down on the left stick to reset our route commit. Now, what route commit does is it tells your man defenders go all out on in-breaking routes if you route commit inside, or out-breaking routes if you route commit outside. You're basically saying if you route commit outside, you're saying don't get beat on an out-breaking route. You can give up the inside, but don't get beat on the outside. And same thing with route commit inside. You're saying don't get beat on the inside. If they break outside, congrats, they got it. But don't get beat on the inside. And so let's look at how this works right now. So starting off, we have the defense in cover 1. And I'm going to go ahead and put this slot receiver on the left side on a corner route. So this is no route commit and no shade. We'll talk about how shade comes into play in a minute. But this is no route commit, no shade, just normal man coverage. And you can see that the corner route gets pretty good separation on him, and we take it all the way for a touchdown. Now, let's route commit to the outside. Let's do the exact same route combo. So we have our smoke screen and corner route, but this time we're going to route commit. So we're going to press RB or R1, and then I'm going to press right on the left stick to route commit outside. Now, nothing changed visually. You don't see the guys move or anything, but we have route committed to the outside. And so if we snap this ball once again, what you're going to see is that this time the cornerback is playing way tighter and he gets the swat and makes the play. Now, let's say you route commit incorrectly. Let's do the same route combo. Let's do the smoke screen and the corner route. But let's say you thought he was going to run like a slant or a post or something, and you route committed inside, which is left on the left stick. The reason that this is high risk, high reward is that if you guess wrong, then your cornerback's going to kind of get left in the dust, and you can see that we had even more separation than we did on just the normal man coverage. And so that's kind of the risk versus reward is if you route commit incorrectly, you will almost always get beat on that side. But if you route commit correctly, so once again, we'll go ahead and route commit outside. If you route commit correctly, then your defender, more often than not, will be in perfect position to make a play on the ball. Now let's talk about how shading comes into play, because shading coverage is still in the game as well. So in order to shade your coverage on defense, you're going to press Y or triangle, and it's going to pull up your coverage adjustments menu. And then you can take your right stick and you can shade over top, underneath, outside, or inside. And when you shade your coverage outside or inside, it's going to physically move the leverage of your defender. So if I go ahead and shade outside, which is going to be right on the right stick, go ahead and watch my slot cornerback. You see how not just the slot cornerback, but all the defenders, they physically moved outside. Now, that is going to change their leverage, but it's not going to change their actual route commit. And so this is a shade outside, but no route commit. We go ahead and snap this ball. We can see that even though our cornerback had outside leverage, he didn't commit as hard to guarding the route. So this time what we'll do is we'll go ahead and shade our coverage outside. So wire triangle, right on the right stick, and we'll route commit. And so now I'm going to go right on the left stick. So this is a shade outside and a route commit outside. If we snap this ball, we can see that not only did he have the leverage, he's all over it. And once again, he gets the swat and makes the play. So if you want to have the best coverage possible for guarding outside, you're going to want to both shade outside and route commit outside. And same thing to the inside. You want to both shade inside for the leverage and route commit inside to tell your guy to just sell out on those in-breaking routes. Now, one other thing I should mention, when you use RB or R1 and route commit, this is a universal route commit. So if I route commit outside right here, I am telling all of my receivers to route commit to the outside. Now, you may not want that. You may want just one player to route commit. And so in order to do that, you need to use the same controls that we would use to individually back off a player. And so what we would do in that case is we would press Y or triangle for our coverage adjustments. We would then press A or X for individual adjustments. We would then select the receiver lined up across from the defensive back whose route commit we want to change. So if we want to change it for our slot cornerback on the left side, the guy we've been looking at this whole time, we would press the Y icon, since that's the icon of the receiver across from him, and then we get our route commit menu again. And this is going to be individually for that defensive back. And so if you go right on the left stick right here, you have now individually shaded this defender, not shaded, but individually route committed this defender to the inside, even though everyone else is on an outside route commit. And so that's a very important thing as well, is knowing how to individually do it. And so one more time, it's going to be Y or triangle for coverage adjustments, A or X for individual adjustments, select the icon of the receiver across from the defensive back you want to shade, and then it brings up that menu as well. That is going to be super important, because if you just do it from the menu that has RB or R1, you're going to be route committing all of your defenders, and you maybe don't always want to do that. Now, the final thing I want to talk about are some small limitations of the route commit. In my own testing, I was finding that if you just have slot receivers on out routes, sometimes these out routes actually just do really well against route commit, especially these 90-degree out routes. So if you look at the A receiver on the right side, I'm going to take the defense. I'm going to route commit them outside, but at least in my testing, who knows when we're actually recording, but at least in my own testing, that out route still did really well. And I think we have a 90-degree out route here on the left side as well. And so once again, let me get clicked off of this defender, but I'm going to route commit outside. And more often than not, in my testing, these out routes were still at least completions. I mean, I know it's not a huge gain. I know it's only a 2-yard completion, but I was surprised by that. I was surprised that even with a route commit to the outside, that these were still completions. And so the important lesson, the important takeaway is that there will be cases where you route commit outside and you still end up getting beat to the outside, where you route commit inside and you still get beat to the inside. It's not perfect. However, it is the best chance we have. If you know you want to take away something on the outside or take away something on the inside, then route committing in that direction is your best chance of getting the defender to play it. Like I said, it's not perfect. Nothing in the game is perfect, but it is still a very valuable tool, a tool to make your man coverage play significantly better if you route commit in the right direction. Now, moving on to number 3, the new safety alignment adjustments let you customize exactly where your safeties line up in College Football 26. This is a really cool new feature, and if you want your safeties to play way down, way inside, way outside, or shift them left or shift them right, you now have the ability to do that. And so let's go into the play call screen and our coaching adjustments and look at how exactly we can do that. And so when we go to our coaching adjustments, there are 3 options we want to look at, and they're at the very bottom of the coaching adjustments. We have safety depth, safety width, and safety midpoint. And so starting off, safety depth is exactly what you would expect. It's how deep or shallow you want your safeties to play. You have an option for deep, which is 25 yards off the line of scrimmage, prevent, which is 32 yards off the line of scrimmage, tight, which is 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, and close, which is 8 yards off the line of scrimmage. And then we're just back to default, which will be anywhere from 10 to 15 yards, depending on where you're playing or what kind of coverage you're playing. And so let's go ahead and look at tight, and you guys can see how cover 4 drop will look against a gun empty spread set. And you guys can see that those safeties are really far down. And I really like this because last year I liked playing a lot of cover 4, but what would happen is I would be in situations where my safeties were always way out here, like way back deep. And it's like they, in theory, have the seams covered. But if you look at how much space there is underneath them, it was so easy for my opponent to just like snap and throw in that space underneath the inside quarter. And so now actually having the ability to have the safeties start this close to the line of scrimmage, it completely takes away the option for my opponent to just snap and throw the ball underneath the safeties. And so I think that safety depth is absolutely the most important adjustment that we have for modifying how our safeties play. But that's not all we have. We, of course, have 2 other types of adjustments as well. And so if we go back to our coaching adjustments, The next one we need to look at is going to be safety width. And from here, we have a few different options. We have spread, which is going to spread the safeties out wider. We have wide, which is going to spread them out even wider than that. And we'll take a look at this. It's kind of comical how wide you can spread them. And there's also pinch, which brings them in narrower, and then back to default. So let's go ahead and we'll instead of tight, we'll put them on default depth, but we will do wide for the safety width. And it's pretty wide, guys. Take a look at this. Look at where our safeties are playing now. Our safeties are literally as far outside as our outside cornerbacks. I don't really know of a situation where you'd want to do this, but you have the freedom to if you want to. And that's what's cool. I think ultimately we want the freedom to be able to do whatever we want, even if it's something that maybe wouldn't make sense in most cases. What I personally recommend is, if anything, use default or use pinch. And the reason I like using pinch is because I don't like it when my safeties get split over the middle, especially when I'm in something like cover 4. And so with pinch, they're going to play a little closer together. Now, I will say that the pinch and spread options are going to partially depend on the formation that your opponent comes out in. In a compressed set, like a gun tight, the safeties will end up being closer together when you have that pinch adjustment on. And in this case, when they're in a gun empty spread set. So there is going to be a little bit of variability there depending on what formation your opponent comes out in. But in general, I prefer to have my safeties a little bit closer together. Obviously not too close. I prefer to have them a little bit closer together though. And so that's why I like being on default or pinch when it comes to my safety width. Now you also have safety midpoint as your third option. And so of course, there's default, and there are 6 different options that you have. You have left and right, which is hopefully pretty straightforward. It's going to literally just shift your safeties left or shift your safeties right. You have strong side and weak side. And so strong side is typically the side of the tight end, but in some cases, it may just be the side with more receiving threats. And weak side is going to be the opposite of that. And then field side and boundary side. So field side and boundary side are what I refer to as wide side and short side. Field is wide side. Boundary is short side. And so you have all these different options. And so right here, we'll just go ahead and look at what it looks like to shift them to the right. And we'll go ahead and once again, go back on default for the width. So we're just looking at shifting to the right. We'll call cover 4 drop. And you can see that when we come out, we have shifted our safeties significantly to the right. Again, maybe a little bit too much to the right. And so these are adjustments that you have to be a little bit careful of. And if you haven't tested them in advance, you may get unexpected results because he's definitely playing to the right. That right side safety is definitely on the right, but it's kind of like it's not that useful having him play right there. And so I think that the depth adjustments are going to be the most consistent, and then maybe pinching if you need them to play a little bit tighter. But besides that, if you're going to be messing around too much with, having your safeties on something like spread or wide, or if you're going to be shifting the midpoint, it's something that you definitely should lab in advance, because if you just do it in a game without knowing exactly how it's going to manifest itself in your particular defensive formation, you may get unintended results like we saw on the field right there, where our safety, who's playing an inside quarter, is literally lined up on the sideline. And so my personal recommendation is mainly stick to safety depth. I think that something like tight or close is really good if you want your safeties up. Obviously, being in deep or prevent is great if you're worried about maybe a Hail Mary at the end of the half or something. But mostly I would stick with safety depth. Only do these if you have labbed it and you are confident you know exactly where your safeties will play, because otherwise it may just end up being really funky. But safety depth alone is a great addition. And in general, I love the fact that we have the freedom to customize where our safeties play in College Football 26. Now at number 4, the new option and RPO coaching adjustments make it super easy to shut down the glitchiest plays in College Football 26. There are tons of different option and RPO plays in this game, but the new coaching adjustments that EA added this year let you customize exactly how you want to defend each and every one of them. And so let's hop into our coaching adjustments and look at what we're working with. Now, what you have to remember is that last year, for option and RPO plays, there was only one menu item. It just said option defense, and you could put it on balanced, aggressive, or conservative. Well, this year, there are 4 different menu items. There's option read key, option pitch key, RPO read key, and RPO pass key. And for all of these, you have the option to put them on balanced, conservative, or aggressive. And so let's go through each one of these real quick and talk about how they can be changed to dictate how your players play on the field against option and RPO plays. So starting off with option read key, this is specifically going to be for read option plays. And so if I find a read option for the offense here, when you have your option read key on aggressive, he is always going to go after the running back on the dive. And if we come out in a 4-down lineman set and our read key is the defender with the R icon above his head, if we snap this ball and hand off to the running back, he is going to fly in there and go after the running back. Now, he was unfortunately for him pretty slow, so he couldn't get there, but he still ran in and committed to going after the dive. And if we were to read this properly like a read option, when we see him crash in, we would actually want to hold A on Xbox or X on PlayStation to keep the ball with our quarterback and get some yards on the outside. Now, if we want our read key defender to stay outside, then in that case, in our coaching adjustments, we would want this to be on conservative. And when we have that on conservative and have the exact same play call, what you're going to see this time is that that read key is just going to stay outside. He's going to kind of, sometimes he'll square up to the mesh point. In that case, he kind of just drifted outside a little bit. But what you can see is that he is selling out to guard the QB keep. He is going to stay outside. And if the QB keeps that ball, he is going to be there to clean it up and probably tackle that quarterback for a loss in the backfield. So far, so good. That is how we can manipulate the read key on a read option play. The next option is going to be the option pitch key. And they've kind of reversed the terminology from previous years, at least as far as I've known it. And so now, when you have your option pitch key on conservative, he's going to go after the quarterback and leave the pitch man wide open. And if the option pitch key is on aggressive, he is going to leave the quarterback open and stay on the pitch man. I don't think that's how it has always been labeled, but that's how it is now. And so let's start off with option pitch key conservative. That means he's going to go after the quarterback and leave the pitch open. And so we'll go ahead and just call one of our same play once again. And Oregon has a speed option here in the gun trips formation. And so the pitch key is, of course, the defender with the P icon above his head. We snap this ball, and he flies right in at the quarterback and forces us to make that pitch. And sure enough, if we switch that assignment from conservative to aggressive, I'm like getting it backwards in my head because I'm still not used to it. But if we switch it from conservative to aggressive and we call the same plays, what we're going to see this time is that the pitch key is going to slide outside and go after the pitch man, and he's going to kind of force us to keep with the quarterback. Now, again, in this particular case, that dude's kind of so slow that we may be able to just like pitch it anyway, and we can. And so sometimes with these, you got to think about the personnel as well, and that big boy is just having trouble keeping up with the pitch man. But you can see that it is still changing his behavior. He is still playing much differently depending on if he's on aggressive or conservative. And so the third option we have now is going to be RPO read key. And so this is going to be the exact same thing as an option read key, but specifically for RPO read plays. And so we can do an example real quick, even though I think that you guys are smart enough that you understand it. We'll do it just in case. And so if we go to the play RPO read Y flat, if we have our RPO read key on conservative, it's going to be the exact same thing. They're going to stay outside to guard the quarterback and leave the dive open. And if they're on aggressive, they'll go after the dive and leave the quarterback open. And so our read key, once again, in this case, he's on the left side this time, and he's on aggressive now, so he's going to come in. So we snap this ball. He stays outside, of course. And so in that case, I don't know what just happened. Should we check the settings? I put him on aggressive, didn't I? Or am I crazy? RPO read key aggressive. So in that case, I don't know what just happened. I don't think that's something that's going to happen very often. And so maybe your guys will just have a mind of their own sometimes. That can, I guess, occasionally happen. We go ahead and snap this again. That time he comes in, and that's kind of like what is supposed to happen if he's on aggressive. What you saw the first time is something that would happen when he's on conservative. So I don't know why that happened, but that's okay. And then, of course, the final adjustment is going to be to have our RPO pass key on conservative or aggressive. And so this one actually can be pretty substantial, especially if it's like an RPO bubble screen or something. And so we'll call RPO read Y flat again. And in this case, what you're going to see is the pitch key or the pass key defender is, in this case, this guy right here. And so because he's on pass defense conservative, or his option pass key defense is conservative, what's going to happen is he is going to defend the passing option, which in this case is going to be the flat route from our tight end. So he's going to ignore the run component. He's going to get out wide and guard the pass component. And I tried to throw to the running back on the flat route, and I just unfortunately did not get the throw off fast enough. But you can see right here that our pass key defender stayed outside to guard the pass. He didn't stay inside to defend the run. And so that is the difference. If he was on pass key defense aggressive, then he would focus on the run component and ignore the pass component. And so it's kind of a lot when you first see it. There's a lot of different options. It can be a little bit overwhelming, but the good news is that the game does tell you exactly what each setting will do. And so it even says, if it's on aggressive, focus on stopping the run, pass coverage is left open. So if you're ever not sure, just look at the little tip right there and it'll tell you the pros and cons of choosing aggressive or conservative. And again, if you're on balanced, it's just going to sometimes do one or sometimes do the other. So hopefully that all makes sense for you guys. And you have to adjust based on your opponent. But if I was to recommend certain settings, I would probably say I want my option read key on conservative. I want my RPO read key on conservative, because in both cases, I don't want to let the quarterback keep it and go for a bunch of yards. I want to force the handoff. And then my RPO pass key, I usually am going to want on conservative. Now, all of this means handing the ball off and running up the middle will be easier. And so it's up to you what you want to give up. I mean, there's always going to be pros and cons of everything. I would rather have that happen than give up a free RPO bubble screen or an RPO flat route. I would rather make them hand it off than let the quarterback keep it and then run for 30 yards on the outside. And so these are going to be my settings. Now, option pitch key, it's going to kind of depend, because if you go on conservative and force the pitch, sometimes you can force the pitch every time and then get your user out there to guard the pitch. Other times, if you have your defender play the pitch man, a lot of people are afraid to keep with the quarterback, especially because they can risk fumbling. And so I think that for the most part, these are going to be my settings to start. Conservative option read key, aggressive option pitch key, conservative RPO read key, and conservative RPO pass key. I think that in all four of these cases, the idea is I will accept the run to the inside. I want to take away the run and pass to the outside. So that's kind of the mentality on all four of these. And of course, you can experiment with them yourself in your games, but this is what I'm going to recommend as we start off College Football 26. Now, moving on to number 5, the new show blitz adjustments give you way more options for disguising your blitzes in College Football 26. There are now 3 different ways that you can show blitz before the snap. You can show blitz with just your linebackers, show blitz with just your defensive backs, or show blitz with everybody. This is a pretty big change from last year, where there was only one option to show blitz, and these new adjustments do have some downstream effects of changing the button presses of some other popular pre-snap adjustments. But let's talk about the different ways that we can show blitz. And first up is to show blitz with just our linebackers. If we press right on the D-pad, it is going to pull up our linebacker adjustments. And if you look in the lower right, you can see that if we press RB or R1, it is going to tell just our linebackers to show blitz. And sure enough, both of our linebackers just walked up a few steps. It's nothing substantial, but it does move them up. I'll go ahead and reset the play to put them back. Now, the second option you have for showing blitz is with just your defensive backs. And in that case, I'm going to press Y or triangle to pull up coverage adjustments. And you can see that once again in the lower right, there's an option for show blitz by pressing RB or R1. And if I press that, then our defensive backs are going to show blitz. And so all of our outside cornerbacks and our slot cornerback, they pressed up. Our safety in the middle third walked way down. And now we have showed blitz with our defensive backs, but our linebackers stayed in the same spot. And so I'll go ahead and reset the play once again. Now, the third and final way to show blitz is to tap RB or R1, and then one more time, you can see in the lower right-hand corner, RB or R1 again is show blitz, and this time it's gonna be everybody. So all our defensive backs walk up, our linebackers walk up, and now everyone is showing Blitz. Now, you may or may not have realized there's a pretty big implication here, because if you played college football last year, or especially if you've played Madden for years and years, you may be saying, wait a second, RB or R1, that's always been QB contained. That's been QB contained for as long as we can remember. Well, not anymore. QB contained is now RB or R1 and then LB or L1. You can see that there it is in the bottom row next to show Blitz. LB or L1 is QB contained. This is pretty significant, I think, for a lot of people, because so many of us have the muscle memory of just double tapping RB or R1 to put our D line on a QB contain. It is going to take some time for a lot of us to get used to this being different. I can tell you that in my early games so far, out of instinct, I have double tapped RB, and it's like, oh, I accidentally just showed Blitz with all my defensive backs and linebackers. And so even more important than the fact that we have 3 different ways to show Blitz, I think that the biggest change from this is the fact that QB contain is no longer RB or R1. It's now RB or R1. And that is going to take some time for a lot of people to adjust to. But whether we like it or not, that is the way it is. QB contain is on a different button now, and we have 3 different ways to show Blitz. Now, as for the usefulness of show Blitz, I would say the only time right now that I'm really using it is if I think my opponent's probably running the ball and I just want to bring everyone down into the box. But in terms of pass coverage and Blitz setups, at least so far, I haven't really seen a huge advantage from showing Blitz. But of course, just being able to bring everyone into the box is still really good for run stopping on those plays where you think they're probably running the ball. And so in summary, those are the 3 ways to show Blitz and the new button for QB contain. It's going to take some getting used to, but I really think that in a couple weeks, it'll feel like second nature to us. So those are the 5 things that completely change defense in college football 26. If you guys enjoyed the video, please do us a huge favor by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel so that we know you want to see more videos just like this one. But thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video.